There was a sound American teenagers used to know by heart, a sound most of us have never heard once in our whole lives. It was the click of a metal tray locking onto a rolled-down car window, followed by the hiss of a root beer float settling in a frosted mug. That sound meant Friday night had officially started. This isn't just a list of old fast food. Stick with us and you'll see something bigger. How a 5-minute wait in a parking lot, under buzzing neon and a transistor radio, became the emotional center of an entire generation's youth. There are 25 meals on this list, and every single one carried more than calories. Let's start at the bottom and drive our way to the top. Frosted root beer in a mug. Before plastic cups, the mug itself was part of the meal. Carhops kept them in a deep freezer, so the glass came out coated in a crackling layer of ice, and the first sip hit your lips, like winter. Teenagers would order one, just to hold something cold while they waited for the rest of the tray. The mug system faded when drive-ins realized frozen glass on a moving tray was a liability, and paper cups were cheaper to replace. Foot-long chili dogs. A hot dog stretched a full 12 inches, buried under a ladle of loose, meaty chili with no beans, and finished with a snowstorm of shredded cheddar. It barely fit on the paper boat. Eating one without spilling chili down your shirt was basically a rite of passage. As health inspectors tightened rules on open chili wells, sitting out for hours under heat lamps, many stands shrank the dog and thinned the chili until the foot-long became a memory instead of a menu item. Tater tots, fresh from the fryer. Tots were still a fairly new invention in the 50s, born from potato scraps that used to get thrown away, and drive-ins fell in love with them instantly. Served in a little paper cone, blistering hot, they came with a side of ketchup packets you'd tear open with your teeth because your hands were full holding the tray steady. The crunch was the whole point. As bigger fast food chains standardized frozen supply lines in the 70s, small independent drive-ins making tots fresh in-house simply couldn't compete on cost anymore. Cherry limeade, extra cherries, sweet, tart, and a shade of red that stained your lips for an hour afterward. Cherry limeade was the unofficial drink of teenage flirting. Carhops would sometimes slip a couple extra maraschino cherries into the cup if you were a regular, and that small kindness meant everything when you were 16. Ice clinking, headlights sweeping across the lot as another car pulled in. When soda fountains disappeared from most towns, the fresh squeezed limeade recipe went with them, replaced by syrup concentrate that never tasted quite the same. Onion rings, battered thick, these weren't the thin, sad rings you get today. Drive-in onion rings were sliced thick, dipped in a beer-style batter, and fried until the outside crackled while the onion inside stayed sweet and almost raw. They came piled in a wax paper sack that went soft with grease before you reached the bottom. Sharing a bag across 2 or 3 friends in one car was practically mandatory. Rising oil costs and the labor of hand battering each ring pushed most drive-ins toward pre-breaded frozen versions by the late 60s. Popular in the Midwest, the tenderloin was pounded so thin it hung off every side of the bun, breaded and fried until golden, then dressed with mustard, pickle, and onion. Teenagers ordered it because it looked absurd and tasted incredible, a status sandwich you showed off through the car window. It required a cook who knew how to pound meat properly, a skill that got harder to find as drive-ins tried to run leaner kitchens. Corn dogs on a stick, a hot dog dipped in sweet cornmeal batter, fried and served on a wooden stick so you could eat it one-handed while your other hand held your dates. Corn dogs were built for the drive-in specifically, food you could manage without a fork or napkin emergency. As fairs and carnivals became the default place, people expected corn dogs, drive-ins lost their grip on a food they basically helped popularize. Malted milkshakes, hand-dipped, real hand-scooped ice cream, whole milk, and a scoop of malt powder blended in a metal cup so thick the straw stood up straight on its own. Getting the last inch up the straw took real effort, and everyone respected the noise you made doing it. The malt gave it a nutty, almost toasted flavor that mass-produced shakes never replicated. When soft-serve machines arrived and drastically cut labor costs, most drive-ins swapped out real malted shakes for the thinner, faster version within a decade. Chili cheese fries, extra messy. A basket of fries drowned in chili and shredded cheese, served with a fork because eating it with your hands was simply not possible. Carhops learned to carry these carefully, tray tilted just right, because one wrong turn meant chili down the side of somebody's Chevy. Friends would order one basket to split 3 ways. As drive-ins shrank their menus to survive rising costs in the 70s, messy, shareable sides like this were often the first thing cut for being slow to plate. The basket of fried clams. On the coasts, some drive-ins served fried clam strips in a red and white checkered paper basket. A taste of the shore brought inland to towns nowhere near an ocean. Teenagers who'd never seen the Atlantic still knew the taste of tartar sauce and clam batter from a Saturday night at the local drive-in. Rising seafood prices in the 70s made clams one of the first proteins drive-ins quietly dropped from their boards. Banana splits in a boat dish. 3 scoops, 3 sauces, whipped cream, a cherry on top, served in a long boat that barely fit on the tray. Sharing one banana split with a date, 2 spoons digging in from opposite ends, was a scene that played out identically at drive-ins from Ohio to Oklahoma. The ice cream started melting the second it hit the humid night air, racing you to finish it. Banana splits required real prep time Carhops didn't have during a Friday night rush, so many stands eventually simplified it into a smaller sundae cup. Grilled cheese with griddled tomato soup dip. Not every drive-in was burgers and dogs. Some late-night spots served a grilled cheese, butter crackling on the griddle, alongside a small cup of tomato soup for dipping, a comfort meal for kids who'd had enough grease for one night. It was the order shy kids made on a first outing with older siblings. Warm, simple, and cheap. As drive-ins leaned harder into the youth in cars image through the 60s, quieter comfort food like this got pushed off menus in favor of louder items. Frito pie, served right in the bag. Chili and cheese poured directly into a split-open bag of corn chips, eaten with a plastic spoon straight out of the foil. It looked like nothing special, and tasted like everything good about a Texas drive-in, a Southwest regional favorite that never quite spread nationally. When bagged snack sizes shrank in the inflation years of the 70s, the portion got too small to satisfy, and the item slowly disappeared from most boards. Patty melts on rye, a burger patty, grilled onions, and melted Swiss between 2 slices of buttered rye, pressed flat on the griddle until it was crisp on the outside. It was the sandwich older teenagers ordered when they wanted to seem a little more grown up than the kids getting a plain burger. The smell of griddled rye and onion drifting across a packed lot on a Friday night is something people who lived it still describe vividly. Rye bread cost more and spoiled faster than a standard bun, and as margins tightened, most drive-ins quietly switched everyone back to white buns. Peanut butter and bacon burgers, an odd combination that somehow worked, a griddled burger topped with crispy bacon and a smear of warm peanut butter, sweet and salty in every bite. It sounds strange today, but in certain regional chains it was a signature order teenagers dared each other to try, then came back for again and again. As national burger chains standardized menus in the 60s, these regional oddities were the first things smoothed away in favor of a predictable, uniform burger everywhere. Cherry Cokes, mixed at the fountain. Not the bottled version, a real fountain Coke with a shot of cherry syrup pumped in by hand, stirred with a long spoon before it ever touched a straw. 10 cents got you a drink that tasted like nothing you could buy anywhere else in town. Carhops memorized regulars' orders down to the exact number of cherry pumps. Here's where it gets more interesting than nostalgia alone, because this drink only existed thanks to a soda fountain setup that required constant syrup deliveries and maintenance. An expense that automated soda machines eliminated within a generation. The deluxe double cheeseburger. 2 patties, 2 slices of cheese, a mountain of lettuce, tomato, pickle, and a swipe of special sauce wrapped tight in wax paper so grease wouldn't soak through onto your lap. This was the order you saved allowance for all week, the one you split with a friend if you were short on cash. Biting into it while balancing a tray on a rolled-down window took practiced coordination nobody talks about anymore. As beef prices climbed through the 60s and 70s, the deluxe double became a luxury item most stands eventually priced right off casual weekly visits. Pigs in a blanket, griddle style. Little sausages wrapped in pancake batter and griddled until golden, served with a small cup of warm syrup for dipping. A breakfast food that somehow made total sense at 11 at night. Teenagers coming from a late movie or a school dance would order these as a lighter alternative to another greasy burger. As drive-ins narrowed their hours and menus to focus purely on the peak dinner rush, these odd breakfast-at-night items were among the earliest casualties. Fried bologna sandwiches. A thick slice of bologna griddled until the edges curled and crisped, stacked with mustard and a slice of cheese on white bread. It was cheap, filling, and tasted like something your dad might have eaten in the army, which somehow made it cooler to teenagers rebelling against fancier food. Says something about how drive-ins served every class of family, not just the ones who could afford steak. As lunch meat prices and quality shifted through the decades, the fried bologna sandwich slid quietly off the board. Root beer floats, the real way. Vanilla ice cream dropped into fresh-drawn root beer, foam rising right to the lip of the frosted mug, a spoon and a straw both required to do it justice. This was the order every single drive-in in America shared in common, the one dish that meant the same thing whether you were in California or Kansas. The float was never rushed. You let the ice cream melt a little into the soda before the first sip. As drive-ins closed by the thousands through the 70s and 80s, the float survived mostly at the handful of chains that made it into the modern era. Cheese fries with a side of gravy. Fries smothered in melted cheese and topped with a rich, dark gravy, a heartier cousin to the standard chili cheese fries, popular at stands that leaned into diner-style comfort food after midnight. The tale was a buff. With the end of the night, when the parking lot had thinned out and only the last few cars remained under the buzzing lights. As late-night crowds shrank with stricter curfews in many towns through the 60s, this after-hours specialty simply had nobody left to order it. The Coney Island hot dog, a steamed hot dog topped with a specific loose meat sauce, mustard, and raw onion. A recipe carried inland by immigrant families and adopted instantly by teenagers who had no idea it started thousands of miles from any coastline. Certain regional drive-in chains built entire reputations around getting the Coney sauce exactly right, guarded like a family secret. It's proof that the thing that mattered was never really the food itself, but who made it and how it connected a whole town. Recipe secrecy meant that when a founder retired, the exact Coney sauce sometimes disappeared with them. Thin patties griddled directly on top of a bed of shaved onions, so the onion practically fused into the meat itself, a technique from Depression-era cooks trying to stretch a small amount of beef further. Teenagers loved the smell of it drifting across the lot more than almost anything else on this list, a smoky, oniony perfume that meant the drive-in was open and cooking. It carried real history, a recipe born from hardship that became a beloved comfort food a generation later. Modern equipment and standardized flat-top procedures at chain restaurants made this slow, hands-on method mostly disappear. The jumbo basket meal, everything included. A tray-sized combination of a burger, fries, onion rings, and a drink, built specifically to be shared by a full car of 4 teenagers who'd pooled their allowance money together. Carhops needed both arms and real balance to deliver it without a spill. It was less a meal and more an event, the anchor of an entire evening spent watching other cars roll in under the lights. As gas prices rose and fewer teenagers had unrestricted access to a car on a school night, the whole idea of a shared jumbo meal lost its built-in audience. The root beer float and burger combo ordered together. This is the one nearly every teenager who lived through it remembers first. A classic burger paired with a frosted mug root beer float, ordered as a single combo the second the Carhop reached the window. It wasn't fancy, and that was exactly the appeal. A reliable, affordable, perfect meal enjoyed with the windows down, the radio playing something new from the AM dial, and friends packed into every seat of the car. That simple combo captured everything a drive-in was supposed to be: cheap, warm, familiar, and shared under a sky full of neon and stars. So here's the real answer to the question sitting under this whole list. Drive-ins didn't fade because the food stopped tasting good. They faded because the culture around them changed. Faster highways replaced cruising strips, and fast food windows replaced car hops on roller skates. What's left now is memory, and maybe that's the real reason these 25 meals still mean so much to the people who tasted them first under those neon lights. If any of these 25 brought back a memory of your own drive-in night, hit like and subscribe for more forgotten pieces of American history.